Now that we've looked at the 7 goals that most economies have, let's look at how an economy functions. And so we're going to make the assumption for right now that we have no international trade and no government. So at this point in time, we have a very simple circular flow of money and goods through our economy. So we have households who are going to sell their resources, what we call factors of production, in the factor market. So this would include land, that's any naturally occurring resource. It would include labor, so the workforce, households sell their labor to firms. Any type of capital that households own. And then we have, of course, the entrepreneurs as well who are selling their services. So we have enterprise. So our factors of production, land, labor, capital, and enterprise, are sold in the factor market. So maybe you've heard of the labor market. The labor market is part of the factor market. So households are going to sell their services to firms. So firms buy in the factor market. And in exchange, firms will pay the households for that land, labor, capital, and enterprise. And so our factor payments, we pay for land with rent. We pay for labor with wages. We pay for capital with interest. And we reward our entrepreneurs with profits. So this money goes from the business to the households to pay for those factors of production that are being sold in the factor market. Well, if we look at wages plus interest plus rent plus profits, that's all the ways that you can make money. And so this is what we call national income. So we'll just use a W to represent wages, I to represent interest, R to represent rent, and pi to represent profits, because we'll use P for price later. So we can measure the size of our economy based on the money that we get paid. So our national income. Well, what do we do with this money that we get paid? Well, if this is a very simple economy that has no foreign trade, so we're buying everything domestically, has no government, and we'll assume at this point no banks to make it very simple, then all the money we get, we spend on buying goods and services. So we're buying cars, houses, we're buying food, all of that's in the product market. Well, when we buy these goods and services in the product market, so when you buy a haircut, when you buy a hamburger, you are paying this money to businesses. And so we have what is called gross domestic product. Gross domestic product is the total value of all final goods and services produced in an economy in a specific period of time, so typically a year. So we can also measure the size of our economy based on the total value of what we make and then sell. So with this simple circular flow, we see how we get income from selling our land, labor, capital, and enterprise. It's used by companies to make goods and services, which are sold back to households. And so we can because of this simple circular flow, we can measure the size of the economy in 2 places. Based on the income we make, so national income, or based on the value of what we produce and sell, so GDP. What we're going to do next is we're going to break this down and we're going to we'll start by looking at the product market. How does it work? We are going to then look at a more complicated circular flow model where we have international trade, government, banks, and how all of that flows. And then we'll break down and we'll look at the other markets like the factor market, the foreign exchange market, and the financial market in more detail. So check out the other videos.